Okay. So the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on April 1st, 2020 is now called to order. Can you get a roll call, please?
Wilson.
Here.
Aaron's.
Here.
Wen.
Here.
Taylor. Knutson.
Here.
Fessler.
So we have a quorum. We can move ahead. Any corrections to the agenda? Jim? Okay. We don't have any corrections. Do we have a motion? Excuse me? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Aaron's,
Second.
seconded by Wilson. We will now vote on approving the agenda. On those who approve, say aye.
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 Those who oppose, say nay. Motion carried. Any corrections to the minutes? Jim? Nobody? Okay. I do have a motion to approve the minutes from the March 4th, 2020 meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Wenman,
Second.
seconded by Aaron's. We now vote on approving the minutes from the March 4th, 2020 meeting. On those who approve, say aye.
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 Motion carried. Agenda item number 5, public hearing request by the Cedar Rapids Hospitality INC for the approval of rezoning from C2 to CPUD2 and a PUD-B site plan of Lot 2, Jacobs Clear Creek, 5th Subdivision. I will now open the public hearing on this item. So if you want to make a public hearing, please state your name and your address.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lucas Newton. I'm with MMS Consultants, and we were the civil engineering consultant on this project. And I wanted to let everybody know that I was here in case you had any questions. And if time allows, maybe we can go through the plans once you're discussing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? So if nobody, so we can, and now we close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to consider approval of the rezoning?
So moved.
Moved by Aaron's,
Second.
seconded by Wilson. Discussion, Jim?
All right, I'll go over this for you members briefly here. This is a public hearing request by Cedar Rapids Hospitality for a favorable recommendation to council for approval of the rezoning for C2, from C2 to a CPUD2 and a CPUD-B site plan for Lot 2, Jacobs Clear Creek 5th Subdivision. What you see on your screen now is a rezoning exhibit. This lot is located at the intersection of James Street, Jacobs, Acorn Drive, and then there's on the eastern portion of this, there's a public access easement to access the lots on the east and on the north. To put this in perspective of location for you, this is just pretty much directly south of the Popeyes, out on Coral Ridge Avenue and 2nd Street. So the first one thing you'll be looking at is the rezoning. Secondly, what you can see now ahead on your screen is a site plan. This proposal is for a 4-room, 68-unit hotel. It's going to be a Best Western Plus hotel, 68 rooms. Originally, it was proposed for 70 rooms. The room count was reduced in order to meet the parking requirement because they couldn't squeeze everything onto the lot they really needed. It is kind of a tight design on this lot. There's a breakfast seating area. There's a pool, fitness room, business center. Each room, or I'm sorry, each floor will have an extended stay king and queen suites. It isn't an entire extended stay hotel. It's basically just a overnight hotel, but they do have some extended stay to accommodate people that will want to stay a little bit longer. The building materials on this are a combination of ephes, stone, and brick. We can get to the landscaping. Okay, this is the, let's go to the elevations if we can. Originally, when we saw this hotel, we worked our way through this, but originally this hotel had basically a stone border around the bottom of it. The rest of the hotel was primary ephes. Staff has worked with them closely and over the period of development to not only increase the stone, as you can see, there's some stone pillar accent on each end of the building. And there's been more stone added to the face of the building as well. And then on the corner of the buildings, you can see where they actually added brick. This brings this building into more compatibility with the surrounding hotels as far as building materials and look goes, which is what we were trying to achieve through our negotiations for. Other than that, I don't have much of a report for you unless you guys have questions for me or Luke, either one.
Can you, this is Mike again. We might have talked about this at the last meeting, the difference between C2 and CPUD2 zoning. What does that exactly entail? The C2 versus the CPUD2 zoning that we're getting asked to approve.
Oh, is the question what the difference is between the two zoning classifications?
Yes.
Typical, or not typical, but our C2 zoning only allows a building height of 35 feet. In order to get the extended height of the stories on this building, they had to go to the PUD, which through the PUD process, we do allow an extension to the height requirement. Therefore, they can have the 4 stories for the hotel.
Got it. Thanks.
Any other question?
Looks good to me.
Okay. So we now vote on approval of the rezoning. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Wenman,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Aaron's,
Aye.
Wen,
Aye.
Taylor, Knutson, Knutson?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried 5-5. Now we will vote on considering approval of the PUD-B site plan. You have a motion? Yeah. Sorry. So moved by Wilson,
Second.
seconded by Wenman. Any further discussion, or we have already had what Jim talked about?
Vote.
Okay, so we can have a roll call vote, please.
Wilson,
Aye.
Aaron's,
Aye.
Wen,
Aye.
Taylor, absent, Knutson?
Aye.
So motion carried. So item number 6, public hearing request by Coral Commerce Investors LLC for the approval of the rezoning from C2 to CPUD2 and PUD-B site plan of Lot 6, Coral Ridge Commerce Park, Phase 6. I will now open the public hearing on this item. Please come forward and state your name and address. So there doesn't seem to be anybody on that end. So I will now close a public hearing. Do I have a motion to consider approval of the rezoning?
So moved.
So moved by Wilson,
Second.
seconded by Aaron's. Discussion, Jim?
This, once again, is a request for a rezoning and a site plan approval. Once again, we're going from a C2 zoning to a CPUD 2 zoning and a CPUD site plan. The explanation for this zoning is that this is a C2 zoning district. Under C2 zoning district, we only allow one structure or one building per lot. This lot is going to be developed with 2 separate buildings. Therefore, through the PUD process, they can request to have the 2 buildings on 1 lot. That is the reason for the rezoning. The PUD-B site plan that you can see before you now, this area is located right at the intersection of Wheaton Road and Cross Park Road in the Coral Ridge Commerce area. That is the area where we already have the Hy-Vee, the Hy-Vee car wash, convenience store, several other businesses in some earlier development. As I said, this is a request to put 2 buildings on 1 lot. Both buildings are 7,180 square feet in size. Proposed uses are restaurant and retail uses. The parking count is based on those uses, although for a change, we have actually more parking than we require on this. There's quite a bit of excess parking on this site. Therefore, if they want to go to more than 1 restaurant, which would drive higher parking, they would have the capability to do that. But right now, it's only proposed for the 1 restaurant. And that would be the building on the north or to the top. The shaded area that you see around the southwest corner of that building is actually an outdoor patio for the restaurant. So, and that is the screening and the fence around the outdoor patio. That's what that area designates there as well. Building materials on this are brick, some composite wood siding, and they do have some architectural and decorative metal on it as well. And there was a possibility of some EIFS. I don't know whether they're going to eliminate the EIFS or not. I believe they've eliminated the EIFS with the actual metal. So those are the materials on that. If you're looking at this, it's similar architecture to the building that the same developer, or the lot that the same developer did earlier to the north of this. Pretty much the same layout. The architecture is very similar to that. That's all I have for you.
Hey, Jim, will one owner own both buildings, or will they be separately owned, or do you know yet?
I'm sorry.
Will there be one owner own both buildings, or will they have separate ownership?
At this point, I don't have any other information on that other than the builder is the one that owns both buildings at this point.
Okay.
Any other question? Okay, we now vote on approval of the rezoning. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Knutson?
Aye.
Nguyen?
Aye.
Aaron's?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Winman?
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0. Do we have a motion to consider approval of the PUD-B site plan?
So moved.
So moved by Winman,
Second.
seconded by Aaron's. Do we have any further discussion on this item? Or we can vote? Okay, we can vote. So can I have a roll call vote on this item, please?
Knutson?
Aye.
Nguyen?
Aye.
Aaron's?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Winman?
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0. Item number 7, request by Scanlon Family LLC for discussion of the concept plan for the Scanlon Farms. Do we have a motion to consider approval? Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have discussion first, or we have to consider approval first?
Do a motion first.
Motion first. Okay. Do you have a motion to consider approval of the concept plan?
So moved.
It's moved by Aaron's,
Second.
seconded by Wilson. Jim?
I'm sure you're all familiar with this area. I think most of you were here when we looked at this area before, when another developer had this. So we've actually, the rezoning on this is already in place. It's already zoned to an RPUD from single-family residential. And we'd also actually at one point in time had an approved site plan as well, but that developer it chose not to develop this piece of ground. So now we have the Scanlon family themselves are looking to go ahead and develop this property through some other parties. So what they're asking from you tonight is not a definite, approval one way or the other. They're recommended, actually, they're just asking for the recommendation on whether or not the site plan as you see it before you is anything that you would be in favor of seeing developed in this area. I can go through it a little bit for you, and I hope you've all had a chance to study it and can have a little discussion on this. But this is a combination of townhomes, duplexes, some 24-unit buildings, various sizes of townhomes. And then it has reserved for another developer some multifamily development, as you can see on the brown portions of this map. The orange colored portions, I'll call them, are all multifamily. The yellow is all single family development. You can see on the one end of it, there's a park, South Park, with a water tower on it. That water tower is actually going to be a city water tower, so we can have appropriate pressure out here for water. There's another area that they now have proposed for a park around a retention basin. So when you're looking at this as developed out, there'll be 322 single family lots on this for development, or 322 single family units. There'll be 432 multifamily units, which is a combination of what you see on here in the orange. And then when the other multifamily develops, that will give us another 232 units. So total units, when this would be developed out with this proposal, would be 986 dwelling units, 986 combination of townhomes, duplexes, single family. So that would give this project a density of 4.7 units per acre, which by Coralville density standards is low density. Maximum density for low density is 6 units per acre. So they're below the density. So even though it looks like there's a lot of units here, and there's a lot of units here, it is still low density. You can also see the purple area there that has been purchased by the Iowa City School District for future development as schools, possibly 2 schools. So I would be interested in hearing what some of you might think of this, to whether you think you could support this going forward, or you could support this with some other ideas of your own, or some changes that might be made to this that you would like to see. What you have on the screen now is kind of a representation of what the houses would look like. These are not large lots, they are small lots. I don't exactly know the dimension of them because this is just a concept plan. It doesn't have any dimensions on them, but I would guess that they are no bigger than 50-foot frontages, which is our R1B, or the smallest lot that by conventional zoning Coralville allows. So at this, I would entertain some discussion among you folks if there's any ideas that any of you have. This will go to council as a concept plan the same way, just so that the developer can get an idea of how P&Z and then how council feels about it as it's presented now.
Do you remember where we stood with the last time this came up as far as the units per acre?
I'm sorry, Paul.
Do you remember what we came up with the last time this came around with the units per acre?
It was in the 5s. It was a little,
it?
it was actually more dense than this. It was like 5.72, I believe.
So the city of Coralville would like to have more density, or would like to have lower density? What is position of the city on this lot, on this project?
I'm sorry, when I didn't hear that.
I mean, I would like to know, because I was not on the committee when this project came to. I think it came on late. Got another like Wayman and Aaron. So I don't know about the idea about moving from higher density to low density. Is it the direction that the city would like to see, or would like to see more density instead of lower density?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear all of that, but you'd like to see more of what?
So I would like to see the direction that the city would like to be in favor. More density or lower density?
I think the city standpoint on this is we would not like to see the density any higher than it is now.
Okay.
It's low density. The land use on this particular piece of property is a combination of low density and medium density. But speaking from a staff standpoint, the staff that I've worked with on this, we would not like to see the density go any higher than it is at this point.
So the school site, is it already being used by the city of Alabama City School District? They are building North Liberty High School right there, right? Is it already built?
It'd be
The high
across
school-
the street.
Okay.
The high school is right across the street.
Okay.
And Jim, with the smaller lots, is it more likely that those houses would be more affordable than some of the others in Coralville?
Yes, you would think so. You would think that. And like I said, I don't know really how to address that for you, Ron, because we had smaller lots, single family development, as you can, out in another portion of Coralville, that were all small lots. And they maximized all their building area, the lots, and went to 2-story homes. And so those homes became fairly large and not what you would call affordable housing by any manner of means. They would be $100 houses. I would think that the goal here, with the proximity to the school or what have you, would be to try to keep it maybe more affordable, but that's just the way I'm looking at it. I don't have that information from a developer, no.
Okay, well, I like that concept, and I also like the lower density, so I could easily support this going forward.
Okay.
I have a question, Jim. Are there any trails or bike paths planned for any of that area?
There aren't any necessarily, I don't believe, and Scott can probably answer that better than I can, any necessarily trails planned, but Scanlon Farm Family Road, and I don't know if it's on this or not, is a very wide road, and one side of that road has a oversized sidewalk on it, which would be a trail, which they would consider a trail, and some landscaping along that. But as far as other than that, there's no extension, to my knowledge, of any city trails or anything like that. But Scott, I don't know if you can address that anymore or not.
Yeah, at this level, we're not laying out specific trails. I can tell you that on the 2 major streets that you see there, Forever Green Road and Scanlon Farms Road, we would be looking to have an 8 or 10 foot sidewalk on one side of those roads, but not both. The other side would have 5-foot sidewalk. And then around the perimeter of the entire area that you are looking at on screen, we already have the Dubuque Street Trail that runs along the east and north side of Dubuque Street. And ultimately, when North Liberty Road is extended or reconstructed, which is an extension of First Avenue coming out of Coralville, First Avenue, North Liberty Road would also have a 10-foot wide trail on one side or the other that would connect into this. And as Jim mentioned before, there's 2 park spaces shown in green, and those would almost certainly have some internal sidewalk or trail network, but we're not to that level of detail just yet.
The dark blue areas, are they parks, Scott?
Those are detention ponds.
Detention pond, okay.
Yeah, the park area would be the green around that blue pond, and then down to the south where the proposed water tower is. That terrain in there is really difficult to build on. Plus, it has a lot of mature oak trees that, if it became a city park, we would look to enhance that space.
I would agree. This plan seems very reasonable. I have concerns long-term about First Avenue. You just mentioned that it's, going to get upgraded and have sidewalks. Currently, there's already some traffic issues with Oakdale and First Avenue, a little bit at Dubuque Street and Oakdale as well. And this is going to compound that considerably eventually as it starts to fill in. So I'd just like the city to be cognizant of those issues that will be exacerbated as this starts to fill out.
And I can add that the concerns about First Avenue starting at Oakdale Boulevard and heading north is something that I talk to residents frequently about, particularly over the past 5 years or so with the increase in traffic due to growth in North Liberty and the surrounding area. What I typically tell residents is that our first priority when it comes to any improvements in that corridor is first going to be at the First Avenue and Oakdale Boulevard intersection, where we've had the temporary traffic signals running now for, I think, at least 5 years. Ultimately, we want to convert that intersection to a roundabout. And then our plan at the moment is to consider some of the major intersections north of there, such as First Avenue and Auburn Hills Drive would be a prime candidate for another roundabout. And then further north, as you see in the Scanlon Farm site plan, there is a roundabout at North Liberty Road and Forever Green Road. So what we think the path will be is that we tackle the intersection improvements with roundabouts at key intersections, but hopefully be able to keep the interconnecting road segments potentially a 2-lane, and then upgrade those segments in between roundabouts as funding allows. So the roundabouts would have handle the traffic flow at those intersections where we have concerns with residents pulling in and out of their subdivisions off the side streets. But it'll take time to build that corridor. It's several miles long.
Thanks, Scott. I think obviously it'll take time to put this development in too. So I think we have a little time, but yeah, I think your priorities are right. The Oakdale and First Avenue is with the 3-way stops and everything is priority number 1 probably. As someone who lives in that area, I think that with 1,000 more doors open or 1,000 more units, it'll as that grows out, it'll be worse and worse. So I'm glad you've thought about that. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it looked very similar to what we saw last time, just rearranging of a few things, but for the most part, it was very similar.
Okay. Any further thoughts, issues? Okay, we now vote on the approval of the concept plan. On those who approve, say aye.
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 On those who oppose, say nay. Motion carried 5-0. So we have item number 8. We have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Before we do that, I have one thing I want to do with you. I need to introduce, this is my last meeting.
Okay.
I am retired now at this point. So I want to introduce to you my replacement. Gentleman that took my job, David Johnson, is sitting here. You want to slide over, Dave?
I think you're going to have to slide over to them.
Let's move out of the way. All right, so I want to introduce you to David Johnson. David comes to us from Dubuque, and he is our new Community Development Director in the city of Coralville. So he will be handling community development, building department, rental department, and probably several other things that he may not even know about yet. But anyhow, I did want to introduce who will be at your next meeting to you.
Just want to say that I'm very glad to be here, and kudos to Jim for his many years of fantastic service to the city of Coralville. And again, I'm here to help out in any way I can and look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. And thank you very much for
Welcome aboard.
Chancellor, very much for your service over the years.
I will say to you that to my knowledge, there were no new things come in this week for next month's planning and zoning meeting, but we do have some other things that have been sitting here that we've been working with that may very well come back for the next meeting. So that's all.
All right.
The next
All right.
meeting will be the same, right? Through Zoom, right? Okay, do you have motion to adjourn the meeting?
So
So
moved.
moved.
It's moved by Wilson and seconded by Aaron. So the meeting is now adjourned.